Good afternoon. I'm Shelby White, and I'm head of the American Friends of the Israel Antiquities Authority. It's a pleasure to welcome you today to our 8th annual lecture series, Archaeological Discoveries in Israel. The lecture series is made possible by a generous grant from the Helen Diller Family Foundation, a supporting foundation of the Jewish Community Fund of San Francisco. Today's lecture, From the Furnace, Fire to the Emperor's Court, Ancient Glass in the Holy Land, will be presented by Yael Goren-Rosen, head of the Ancient Glass Department of the Israel Antiquities Authority. Her fascinating lecture focuses on the production of ancient glass in Israel, from large-scale raw glass industries to the artisan's workshop. It will examine the design and use of furnaces, various vessels, and other finds. Yael will also highlight our fabulous Byzantine gold and opaque glass panel masterpiece from Cesarea, which was found only recently, in fact, in 2005. The panel is currently on display at the Mary and Michael Jaharis Byzantine Galleries here at the Met, and it's just right to the right of the information, the ticket booth as you come in the main stairs. As well as we invite you to look at our long-term loan exhibition of Chalcolithic period objects in the ancient Near Eastern art galleries on the mezzanine floor. The Israel Antiquities Authority is the preeminent organization in the fields of Israeli and biblical archaeology. As such, it's responsible for all matter of excavation in Israel, including land, marine excavations, development and protection of archaeological sites, research, education, publication, and conservation of sites and objects. The Antiquity Authority is the custodian of the national treasures of Israel, including more than 1 million archaeological objects, among them 15,000 Dead Sea Scrolls and some 30,000 archaeological sites throughout Israel. And on the screen, we have a rendering of what will be the new storehouse for the Israel Antiquity Authority. For the first time ever, all of the different excavation sites will be able to exhibit their material in the same place. It will be a great haven for research scholars, visitors, and anyone interested in the archaeological finds of the Holy Land. And I'm happy to say that we have received generous support from many friends of the Israel Antiquity Authority, and we thank them all. The lecture series and our program of traveling archaeological exhibitions are part of our efforts to excavate, conserve, preserve, and share the great archaeological heritage and historic record of human culture of the land of Israel with audiences around the world. And so I'm happy to introduce Yael Goren-Rosen, who will talk to us about these great treasures today. Yael has been with the Antiquity Authority since 1991, and she is a great expert, and please join me in welcoming her this afternoon.
Thank you, Shelby. And as we have very limited time together, so I would like to start with a short introduction. I believe that a part of the audience is familiar with the subject, while for others, it will be their first encounter with the wonders of ancient glass. I will take you on a tour from the furnace fire to the emperor's court, via various periods, stages of production, and lovely photographs. The land of Israel, situated in the middle of the ancient world, was blessed with long history that resulted in very rich array of archaeological sites and finds. Most of the excavations in Israel are conducted by professional teams from the Israel Antiquities Authority. The excavators are supported by specialists for the various materials and periods. We in the glass department are responsible for all the glass retrieved from those excavations from the end of the fieldwork until the final publication. We receive the boxes with the glass fragments, register them, diagnose, document, and make the professional decisions about conservation, drawing, and photographing. Then we study the finds and publish them in final reports. Today, I would like to share with you some of these interesting finds and to give you a glimpse of their place in the history of ancient glass. The invention of glass as an artificial, intentionally produced material took place in Egypt and Mesopotamia around the middle of the second millennium BCE, about 3,500 years ago. The early glass vessels in the mid-second millennium BCE were small containers first produced as luxury items for the royal courts of the ancient world. These vessels were made in the core-forming technique in a variety of colors, mostly deep blue, turquoise, yellow, and white, which emulated semi-precious stones or precious metals. From the early stages of glassmaking, the industries were separated to raw glass installations, which produced the raw glass ingots, and glass working furnaces, where vessels and objects were made from the remelted raw glass. The raw glass ingots were exported by sea traders to the ancient world. This phenomenon is evident among the finds of shipwrecks around the Mediterranean. The example before you is the famous shipwreck found at Ulu Burun in Turkey. Over the centuries, alongside the development of core forming, various casting methods, as well as mosaic glass and gold glass techniques, were employed. As the demand for glass vessels increased, sophisticated production methods evolved and new forms were introduced. During the Hellenistic period, around the 2nd century BCE, the glassmakers developed the casting technique to a very high level. The bowls were made in local glass workshops, probably in the Eastern Mediterranean. Remains of such cast bowls were found in late Hellenistic and early Roman sites in Israel, from the north of the country down to the Negev. From now on, I will focus on the local finds. In some cases, I add complete examples from collections, which you can recognize by their titles. After the general background, covering almost 1,500 years in 2 minutes, we will concentrate on the evidence from the Holy Land. When we talk about glass production in the Holy Land, we based our knowledge on 4 main sources. First, the written sources, the Greek and Roman literature and inscriptions, and the Jewish literature. The second and main source for the study of ancient glass is the archaeological evidence. The third is the study and comparison of traditional industries and crafts, which shed light on some aspects of production and technology. Another way to understand ancient technologies is through experiments and reconstructions. I was fortunate to perform such experiments when I gave a course on ancient glass technologies at the Bezalel Art Academy in Jerusalem. I will touch on this matter later on. One of the most important written sources about the origin of glass is Pliny's book, Natural History, in which he tells the tale of the origin of glass. Pliny wrote that part of Syria, which is known as Phoenicia and borders on Judea, contains a swamp near the lower slopes of Mount Carmel. This is supposed to be the source of the river Belus, which, after traveling a distance of 5 miles, flows into the sea near the colony of Ptolemais. Ptolemais is Akko, acre, and the river Belus is a stream that flows south of the city. After his geographical explanation, Pliny recounts the story of Phoenician sailors who set anchor on the Phoenician coast near the mouth of the river Belus. Boiling a cauldron of soup on some natron bricks, natural soda, brought from their ship, they witnessed the melting and fusing of the natron and sand beneath the fire into a fluid that, when cooled, hardened into glass. This tale is not the only one connecting the coastline of Akko with glass production. Josephus mentioned a miraculous spot on the outskirts of the city where sand entered at one end is issued from the other as a river of glass. These legends are the earliest written testimony of glass production in Israel. They probably echo the fact that this area was well known for its high-quality sand and was perhaps a center of glassmaking. One of the most important junctures in the research of the history of glass production was the discovery of the glass workshop dump in the Jewish quarter of the Old City of Jerusalem. The excavations conducted by Avigad uncovered a ritual bath, mikveh, filled with debris from a glass workshop. It contains a large quantity of glass rods, hollow glass tubes, glass chunks, deformed fragments, cast bowl, and a small number of blown fragments. The ritual bath had been filled before the whole area was sealed with large paving stones in the middle of the 1st century BCE. These finds constitute the earliest evidence of glass-blowing activities ever discovered. The ancient glassmakers used the glass tubes as blowing pipes. The far end of the tube was closed and expanded into a vessel by blowing. The early Roman glass furnaces were small, as you see in the reconstruction of a Roman period furnace. The glass blowers developed the technique very quickly, and very soon after, we see wonderful glass vessels. Here is a selection of typical bowls, beakers, and bottles of the 1st and 2nd century CE found in Israel. All the complete vessels were discovered in tombs and burial caves. However, the same vessels types are known from settlements, although usually they are discovered in a more fragmentary state. Alongside the simple blown vessels, groups of fine mold-blown vessels were also made. One of the most well-known glassmakers of the ancient world was Ennion, who left his name inscribed in Greek on various mold-blown vessels. Several identical jugs with the inscription Ennion Epoiasen, made by Ennion, embellish museum collections such as the Corning Museum, the British Museum, and the Eretz Israel Museum in Tel Aviv, as well as here, as well as private collections around the world. A broken Ennion jug on the left was unearthed in the Jewish quarter excavations in a wealthy house destroyed in the First Jewish War against the Romans in the year 70 CE. So far, this is the best preserved, well-dated example from excavations. The Ennion jug, as well as other Sidonian vessels, are examples of the high-quality wares used in the region during the 1st century CE. You are looking at one of the experiments we conducted, blowing into handmade molds made of local limestone. The patterns follows one of the Sidonian vessels. The results were amazing. You can see the work with a 4-part mold, 1 for the base and 3 for the sides. The glass blower is standing while his helper holds the mold during blowing. These wonderful vessels were discovered in the Cave of the Letters in the Judean desert. Although they seem brand new, these fine colorless bowls were buried in the cave for more than 1800 years. During the Second Jewish War against the Romans in 132 to 135 CE, a group of people escaped from the Dead Sea settlement of En-Gedi to find temporary refuge in a nearby cave. One of them was a woman named Babta, whose personal documents were found in a leather pouch. She was a businesswoman who cared for fine objects. Among the items she took with her to the cave were 3 very fine glass plates well packed in palm fiber and tied with a cord. These plates are some of the most luxurious items of the early 2nd century CE. Moving on to the 3rd century, these are bowls and bottles produced locally in the Galilee, where glass production flourished during the late Roman period. This group of vessels was uncovered in the burial cave at Kafar Maker in the western Galilee. It includes shallow and deep bowls, number 1 and 2, and various beakers, among them number 3, with its conical shape decorated with turquoise blobs. This type of beaker served both as a drinking vessel and as an oil lamp, as attested by depictions of mosaic floors and wall paintings. Another popular type of beaker is number 4, discovered in every site occupied during the late Roman period. This group also comprises bottles of various shapes and sizes and cosmetic tubes like number 5 and the long tube-shaped vessels number 6. This group displays the local repertoire of the Galilee during the 4th century. Such vessels were found in burials and in private and public buildings. We continue our tour and reach Castra, situated on the western slope of Mount Carmel. Salvage excavations conducted at the site 15 years ago unearthed hundreds of glass vessels in the cemetery, the dwelling, and the industrial area. All the complete vessels from Castra I will show you were found in burial caves. Just a brief look at some of these vessels. Elegant jugs with a globular or cylindrical body and the strap handle. A flask decorated with handles and tool trail, jugs and jars of different shapes. Jars with handles, trail decoration, or indents on the body. On the left, you see double coal tubes, one of the most popular forms in the country during 4th and 5th centuries. In the center is a 2-handled flask with mold-blown decoration and indentations. The tall jug on a high foot is very typical of the local production. The artists were familiar with the fashion of the period and marked their own personal touch by adding various decorations or changing the vessel's proportions. After studying hundreds of these vessels, I can conclude they were made in a local glass workshop. Also, the same shapes and decorations are repeated in several sites in the vicinity of Castra. Moreover, retraced vessels of the same types that are kept in glass collections all over the world. Following their acquisition records, we found out that most of them were traded by a well-known antiquity dealer named Aziz Khayat, based in the city of Haifa, just a few miles from Castra. Khayat conducted excavations in this area and sold the goods to collections in Europe and the United States. During my short tour here, I already saw many vessels made in Castra in different collections at Toledo, Ann Arbor, San Francisco, as well as here in the showcases. We can enjoy more of these wonderful vessels from Castra, but as our time is limited, I'd like to show you a complete glass workshop and help you imagine how it worked. Bet She'an, Scythopolis, the capital of Palestina Secunda during the Roman period and one of the cities of the Decapolis, is situated in the Jordan Valley. The city was built on both sides of a small river. On one bank you are looking at was the city center, including the theater, the bath, the temples, the agora, and the basilica. The other riverbank included the north gate to the city, the bazaar, the larger churches, and the cemetery. The workshop, discovered during excavations in 1995, was located among the shops along the main street, which runs from the north gate over the bridge to the city center. The workshop was very well preserved due to a local catastrophe, which completely destroyed it during work and gave us the chance to recover it 1400 years later. The workshop is divided into 3 spaces. Please look at number 2. A central room with a furnace in the middle, a storeroom to the north, and a courtyard on the south. 2 black areas, number 1 beside the furnace, yielded complete glass vessels arranged on a heap of olive pits and ashes. These areas were designed to cool the vessels slowly after blowing, a process known as annealing. Number 3 is a close-up of the annealing heap. You can see an overturned bowl and few juglets. This was a very important discovery since ancient manuscripts depict a built annealing area as part of the furnace, and at Bet She'an we see a very simple solution dated to the late 6th, early 7th century CE. These are some of the complete vessels found under fallen stones from the walls of the room in the original place they were stored. Glass window panes were stored in the corner ready for sale, as you can see at the top of the slide, and piles of raw glass chunks were on the floor ready for melting in the furnace. A clay store jar was recovered in the storeroom. It was filled with small glass chunks ready for melting in the furnace. On the left of the clay jar is a pile of stones and red soil ready for repair of the furnace during work. On the bottom of the slide are vessels that fall off the shelves which were installed along the wall. The vessels were discovered one inside the other as they were stored on the shelves, as the wine glasses we see on the right. The Bet She'an glass workshop is an example of the secondary stage, the making of objects and vessels from remelted raw glass chunks. These chunks, you see here, were produced in installations referred to as primary glass production. Some of you may have heard about the great glass slab found in the early 60s at Bet She'arim. It was studied by Robert Brill of the Corning Museum of Glass, and at the time was the third largest glass slab known in the world. The slab, measuring 4 by 2 meters and 45 meter height, was estimated to weigh about 9 tons. It was left in the cave as a result of unsuccessful production. These details are significant for the understanding of the so far best preserved raw glass making installation at Bet Eliezer. The heavy rains of the winter of 1992 exposed the remains of glass floors at the construction site of a new road near the Bet Eliezer neighborhood, east of Hadera. The salvage excavation, which I was fortunate to conduct, yielded the remains of 17 furnaces dating from the 7th-8th centuries. The results of this excavation revolutionized the research of ancient glass technology. As the area had been a swamp, the remains were uncovered very close to the surface. These included the floors of the melting chambers on which the raw glass was produced and then removed, and remains of the firing chambers. Each furnace had a melting chamber measuring 4 by 5 meters, like the Bet She'arim slab. You can see here the melting chamber and the firing chambers. On the left is a reconstruction of the installations. We estimate that each furnace produced between 8 and 10 tons of raw glass in a single firing. If you do the math of 17 furnaces, each one produced about 10 tons of glass, you reach a considerable mass. This large-scale production was intended for the making not only of vessels, but also mosaic floors, window panes, and lighting devices for the local market as well as for export. The raw glass from this region was traded all over the Mediterranean and probably found its way to glass workshops in the Byzantine Empire, possibly even to the capital, Constantinople, and to the emperor's court. Nearly all of the glass was removed, leaving only very few nuggets on the floors. This indicates that the production was successful and the glass was of high quality and suitable for remelting and vessel making. Only one concentration of glass chunks, totaling some 25 kilograms, was discovered. These were probably packed for sale and were left where we eventually found them. In order to better understand ancient technologies, we may look at traditional industries. Here you see raw glass installations that functioned in India until about 20 years ago. They shed light on the finds from Bet Eliezer. Now, I would not be standing here telling you about the wonders of ancient glass if not for the magnificent gold glass panel which is on exhibition here at the Met. The gold glass panel discovered on the coastal plain of Israel is a unique, exceptional find. It is the first complete object of its kind ever to be found. The panel was revealed in a mansion of the Byzantine period located 500 meters east and outside the city wall of Cesarea Maritima. A large figurative mosaic floor excavated in 1955 and known as the Bird's Mosaic was re-exposed for conservation. Limited excavations directed by Yosef Porat were carried out in 2005 south and west of the mosaic. Based on archaeological finds, the mansion was dated to the late 6th, 7th century. The most important find in this excavation was a nearly intact panel shaped like the letter sigma, made of small glass pieces in opus sectile technique. The panel was discovered with its face down directly on the mosaic floor. It was covered by ashes and debris from the ceiling and the second floor of the mansion. The panel was excavated carefully and then moved to the laboratories by a team of field conservators from the IAA directed by Jacques Nagar. The panel comprises a white frame surrounding the central part, both made of combination of translucent gold glass pieces and opaque colored mosaic glass pieces. The tiles of the frame are characterized by a rectangular shape and an L-shaped section. Above the frame tile was found a layer of broken ceramic vases, which protected the frame from the fire and collapse of the building. The back of the panel, which was probably made of organic material, was totally burnt. We still don't know if the panel was attached to a wooden board or frame or glued to a mat. No remains of plaster or any kind of paste were detected. The panel is made in the opus sectile technique, combining pieces of various shapes and sizes. On the frame are large plain gold glass tiles and mosaic glass tiles alternately. The gold glass pieces in the panel are small. The squares are about 5 on 5 centimeters, and the rectangular and triangular ones are even smaller. The square pieces are decorated with relief motifs, a cross and a rosette of 8 leaves. So far, we have not traced any parallels for this type of gold glass tiles or inlays, neither in excavations nor in collections. However, gold glass was employed in the Byzantine period mostly for the making of small tessera, which were used in wall mosaics. They were found together with colored glass tessera in wide distribution, particularly in churches and chapels. Gold glass tiles were known from collections all over the world, but only recently were some unearthed in archaeological excavations. Here is a complete gold glass tile from the Israel Museum, Jerusalem, and a small fragment of such tile excavated in the northern Galilee. Our research on the gold glass tiles helped us understand the production methods of the various elements in the gold glass panel from Caesarea. We will now take a closer look at some excavated examples. They were made of 2 layers of translucent glass, usually colorless, and a thin gold foil in between them. The tiles were probably produced in several stages. First, the thicker bottom layer, between 5 and 8 millimeters thick, was made. Judging from the thickness of this layer and its coarse and dull back, it was sand cast. Then a thin gold foil was applied and immediately covered by a thinner layer of blown glass, less than 1 millimeter thick. Some tiles bear tooling marks on the corners, probably made by the pincers used to attach the thin layer onto the bottom one. Most of those found in excavations indicate the tiles were individually made. In the spring of 2002, we were fortunate to experiment and explore the production process in the hot workshop of the Bezalel Art Academy in Jerusalem. During these experiments, we produced a few gold glass tiles, combining sand casting and blowing to examine the process and the results. First, molten glass was poured into a simple square mold in the sand. On the top right, you can see the preparation of the square mold 10 by 10 centimeter in the sand. On the left, you see the pouring of the hot glass into the mold. Then the student applied the gold foil on top of the tiles, bottom left. Meanwhile, a thin blown blob was made on the blowpipe, and when the gold foil was fixed, the blown blob was attached to the tile, flattened and cut off the blowpipe. Then the margins were broken off. For the finishing, the tile was reheated in the furnace, and the edges were rounded by fire. Only the central piece of the frame has a pattern in cut gold leaf, made in the same technique as the gold glass tiles we have just looked at. But the pattern is much more complicated and has a cross surrounded by some floral patterns. To the best of my knowledge, there is no parallel for this pattern. The gold leaf in the frame tiles cover the entire surface, and its section is L-shaped, another unique phenomenon. To conclude, the various components of the panel, the plain tiles, the small squares with relief, and the central piece are all so far unique. A closer look at the mosaic glass tiles in the frame and the panel reveals they are made of colored glass in combinations of opaque green, red, yellow, and grayish blue. They are covered with dark black patches of corrosion and a thick layer of weathering. Some are severely pitted. We are familiar with the role of mosaic glass inlays in the Hellenistic and Roman worlds. However, the mosaic glass inlays from Caesarea are the first dated to the Byzantine period and may represent the missing link to mosaic glass inlays in early Islamic architecture. The purpose of this panel is unclear. It could have been a table like the marble sigma tables usually found in Byzantine buildings. Among the material unearthed from the same locus as the panel were fragments of a marble sigma table almost identical in shape and measurements to the panel. If indeed the panel was used as a table, it would explain why the frame was raised with the broken pottery. Another possibility is that the panel decorated a niche in a chapel or an altar, such as Emperor Justinian's altar in the Hagia Sophia in Constantinople. This altar was described by Paulus Solentarius in connection with the rededication of the church in 563 CE as follows. On columns of gold is raised the all-golden slab of the holy table. It stands on a base also of gold, and from its gleams the brightness of precious stones. Among other descriptions of this table, the Lexicon of Sodias of the late 11th century notes, a singular golden material mixed with glass and precious stones that it what the holy table of Hagia Sophia is made of. The next quotation is from the report of the destruction of the famous altar in 1204. The holy table, made of all kinds of precious materials, cemented together by fire and formed into a many-colored harmony, was broken into pieces and looted by the soldiers. The echo from this and other ancient descriptions of this holy altar is that it was made of a melted material which was cast and looked like gold, silver, and precious stones. The shining effect of the Caesarea gold glass panel with a combination of green and gray mosaic glass may have been perceived as precious stones, as noted in those descriptions. The patterns decorating the panel may have also had religious significance, which could shed light on the whole complex. The owner of the mansion was probably a rich religious man, so maybe this was the private dwelling of the bishop of Caesarea. I would like to thank everyone who took part in all the projects mentioned today, including the excavators, the conservators, our team in the glass department, as well as all the colleagues who assisted us and shared their expertise. Thank you for listening.
And perhaps you will take a few questions from the audience.
Okay.
Do we have any questions? Yes, please. Yes.
I recall reading the necessity for furnace material because these furnaces were kept hot for quite a long period of time. They didn't evidently permit the furnaces to cool down. So where do the materials come from to keep these furnaces going? Is that part of your excavation, your research?
Okay. They used, of course, wood. And from what we found in the excavation, we realized that they used the wood as it is. They didn't make a previous process to make them as a charcoals. They just put the dry wood in the firing chambers, heated them, and they hit the melting chambers. Yeah, they put local sand with natron bricks. The natron, the soda, was imported from Egypt as bricks. And it echoes in the story I told you, Pliny tells, but we know that trading natron bricks was used, one, for the soap industry, and second, for glass industries.
It's called natural what?
Natron, N-A-T-R-O-N. It's the natural soda. Okay?
I think we had one more down here.
This giant slab of glass I'm fascinated by. What did they have in mind with this giant slab of glass?
Big glass,
Yeah.
you said was the largest, the third
Yeah.
largest. What was it used for?
It was unsuccessful process of, they tried to produce raw glass in this cave, but it ends with unsuccessful process, and the slab was just left there. It's only half vitrified. It doesn't go all the way to become a glass. So it's somewhere in the middle, and they left it there because there is no use for it. And fortunately, we have this lab to explain us how the final product was in the raw glass industries, because Beit Eliezer was so good industrial process that we don't have any glass left on the floors.
We have one more question. Yes.
The central place that you're talking about, where excavations will be pieces of excavation will be exhibited, what stage is that at? Is that in Jerusalem?
Oh, okay, I think I can answer that. Well, it's in the planning stage. We have, the architect is Moses Safdie, and we are hoping to break ground. We have, fortunately, the executive director of the Antiquity Authority here. We will be breaking ground in June, so it should be finished in what? 3 years. Yeah, so it's in a very good state in the sense that we are really ready to go forward with it. So it will be on that space between the Bible Lands Museum and the Israel Museum. So people will really be able to see the Bible Lands, the Great Israel Museum, and then they'll be able to come and see the research materials that'll be in the Israel Antiquity Authority. So, okay, one more.
Are you developing a site in New York City?
I'm sorry?
Are you developing a site in New York City?
A site?
Yeah, do you think by
Well, that's a very different organization. We're going to talk about the Antiquity Authority today. I'm sorry, I think we haven't got any more time for questions, but thank you so much, Galileo.